because you have to balance Wentz's number now with young players. I mean, you think about rookie contracts conservatively on the high end, say they're $1 million cap numbers. That's half your team at least. So think about, you have 35 players on your team and they equal Carson Wentz. Yeah.
It is a Mac and Mac Birds 365 edition with you here on the JAKIB Media Network. We get our fill of NFL insider stuff from another Philly guy. Perfect fit for our show here. And when John told me he was able to get Andrew Brandt to agree to come on, couldn't have been more excited. Former NFL executive turned columnist and podcast host Andrew Brandt joins us here on Birds 365. Andrew, how you doing today?
I'm good, guys. I guess I'm a Philly guy. I mean, I'm a Philly guy through marriage. So
are you making your way over to that Villanova campus on a regular basis?
Yeah. After moving my wife to rural Wisconsin for 10 years, she got to pick the next stop. She is born and raised in Villanova, PA, so it worked out.
Yeah, you're going to be there for a while, buddy.
It's interesting because people will say, as you will know, is Villanova Philadelphia Championship, or is the main line of Philadelphia Championship. But before we get into that, Andrew, I do think I want to warn you because Jody's going to take a victory lap on us, because I was with you and I said there's no way the Eagles are moving on from Carson Wentz with that dead cap money,
right?
Setting a record, setting the precedent. Before we get into the current stuff, talk about just how historic that was and what a leap that was for Jeffrey Lurie to take on that much dead money.
I managed a cap for 10 years. I can't remember a team, not a player, a team having 30 million of dead cap in my day. So I just thought that I said it so many times, and obviously I was wrong. There was no player in the NFL out of 2,000 players with more invested in him than Carson Wentz by a team. When you consider all the draft picks, the first contract, $28 million, the second contract, $150 million, and all the getting rid of Sam Bradford, getting rid of Nick Foles. I mean, it just goes on and on, but they did it. And getting rid of Doug Peterson. So I just thought that cleared the way to keep him, at least let him compete with Jalen Hurts. But no. And I just think this is a massive organizational failure with so much invested in this player. And they did it. Because to me, guys, this was not about football anymore. There was some deep fissure, some deep chasm, whatever the word is, between Wentz and the organization that went beyond football, that went beyond Doug Peterson, obviously, that they could not repair. So he's in his comfort zone with Frank Reich, and the Eagles, have to deal with that $34 million. Imagine these salary cap fantasy football leagues that everyone's in. Imagine you're in a league with $200 and you have to start with $165.
Yeah.
And that stinks.
It does, but here's the reason why, and if I need to take a victory lap, I will, because I thought it could happen, and it did happen. It's 1 year. Now, yes, it's going to be that much more difficult for the new coaching staff, Howie Roseman, who should be under a Klieg light himself. It's going to be tough to put a good football team together. They're dealing with it right now, didn't have a lot of money to spend in free agency. But then it's going to be over and done with. And they're going to have Carson Wentz's money back. They're not going to be paying him, and nothing will be on the cap. It's a really hard hit to take, but it has a shelf life, 1 year. And then next year, you're going to actually open up your cap because he's no longer here. I think that's the way they looked at it. I think that's why Jeffrey Lurie said the restructuring thing when they let Doug Peterson go. They're willing to take a big step back this year because of that massive cap hit, but they think they'll be better for it going forward, Andrew.
Yeah, you just still have this dichotomy with the team where you have, all the players better than I do. You have these veterans like Cox, like Johnson, like Kelsey, like Brooks, and then you're going to mix them with a completely young team because you have to balance Wentz's number now with young players. I mean, you think about rookie contracts conservatively on the high end, say they're $1 million cap numbers. That's half your team at least. So think about you have 35 players on your team and they equal Carson Wentz. you know, so that's what you're talking about here. And they're going to have to win. Maybe they won't win, but they're going to have to win with a majority of rookie contract players.
Andrew, I wanted to talk to you about the changes in the offseason because you were at the forefront of sort of coming up in Green Bay with these workout bonuses to keep people around in the offseason because players, generally didn't want to be in Green Bay in the offseason. The union and the league itself are sort of buckling back and forth. There's so many difficulties. You can't even get to them all. If you think about veteran players, you had a great story about Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. When Brett Favre was away from off-season work, you guys kind of figured out, wow, this guy can play. This guy can lead his team. So out of sight, out of mind, you've been on both sides of the table. How difficult is this issue for both the league and the players' union?
Well, first of all, just recap what you said. And when I got to Green Bay, I noticed all the players hardly any were showing up. We had maybe 5 guys that were showing up full time for the offseason program. Because think about it, these guys are from Florida, Texas, California, etc. They're not coming to Green Bay. And whatever it was, $70 a day, that wasn't going to do it. So I had to do the painful process of redoing all these contracts when they came up to financially incentivize these guys to come up for the program to really establish a culture. And, I fought it for years, and all the agents told me the same thing. Hey, he'll send in his reports from Texas every day. I'm like, no, he's got to be here. And so if a guy was making $1 million, now he's making 900, and 100, goes to workout. If a guy's making 3 million, maybe he's making 2.5 and 500 to work out. And I would convince the players saying, hey, you'll get your money now in the spring versus the fall. So anyway, it was tough. We got it in. And now, as you see, the Packers have $5 million in workout bonuses, more than any team in the league. And the union is telling them, no, you can go in because you got money. So I think, you've seen teams already go in, even though there are pledges from the teams that they're not going in. I think this is a tough issue to stand on the hill for the union because of the talent versus tolerance equation. 70% of the team is thinking they better be in there. It's kind of like if you're in a big law firm and the boss says, hey, a few of us are going to come in this weekend to work on a project. It's up to you. You're going to go in. Yeah. And that's the reality of football. So I don't want to be too harsh on the union, but to me, if they had had this kind of solidarity about fighting the revenue split, fighting the 17th game last year, we'd be in a better place. They'd be in a better place.
Andrew, I want to talk about the 2 different places you were in during your career as an executive here in Philadelphia and Green Bay. Very different situations. One owned by one individual, and you're making your decisions, running your draft, something we've got to be very interested in this week, knowing who's got an eye over you, the guy who's in charge of everything. As compared to Green Bay, a very unique situation in its own, there is no owner. You're just basically reporting to a board of directors because it is owned by everyone, as a matter of fact, publicly traded company. Which did you prefer? Which was easier? How different was it to work for just one guy, big responsibilities, but you're just reporting to one guy as compared to you don't even know who you're really reporting to or you're basically reporting to everybody? Which was more difficult for you?
Well, I've seen all the reports about Philly. I was a consultant for 2 years. I think I only was in one draft run by Andy. And yeah, the owner was involved and in the room, but I don't remember any bogarting of the picks or any decisions that Andy had to run by him. I remember some huddling and maybe a lot of communication with Howie and Andy, but no, I didn't see that. Having said that, Green Bay, as you mentioned, we were autonomous. Yeah, we had a board of directors and some of those guys were in the room, but Ron Wolf and Ted Thompson after him, had complete autonomy. And yeah, you wonder if that would have changed things. Obviously, our most controversial pick in my day was taking Aaron Rodgers in the first slot in 2005 when we had a Hall of Fame quarterback on our roster. Would an owner have approved that? Would an owner have said, no, we need help now? That's a good question to ask. And just to follow up your earlier question, John, Brett would go to Mississippi in the off seasons and we wouldn't see him till training camp. This kid, Aaron Rodgers, shows up. Obviously, he's not skipping workouts. He's a rookie and a second-year, third-year player. And yes, he showed us over those 2 off seasons that we could hand him the keys to the franchise. We had players, Greg Jennings, Donald Driver, come up to the office like, oh my God, this guy, the arm strength, the movement skills, the leadership, it was all there. And not that we wanted to get rid of Brett Favre. Let's put that out there, of course. But we had what we wanted.
Well, I always joke that Green Bay fans are probably the most spoiled fans in the world because they've had Hall of Fame quarterback play for over a quarter of a century uninterrupted. It just never happened. So it worked out beautifully.
30 years, and everybody asked me about the pick last year. I get it. The criticism of Jordan Love is the exact same criticism we got of Aaron Rodgers. And the goal is that have 45 years of franchise quarterback. Now we'll see if he works.
Yeah. I know you got to run, Andrew. So real quick to finish up with you, I wanted to talk about this collaborative process in Philadelphia because you mentioned you've just been in 2 different places, autonomy. It seems altruistic when you have everybody sort of giving their opinion, but isn't there obvious pitfalls to that as well? You could have creating unintended consequences the more voices you have in decision making. Not only players, could be contracts, could be whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I'm appreciative of my time in Green Bay, and other teams tell me, man, you don't know how good you had it, is that we stayed in our lanes. We had great personnel people like John Schneider, John Dorsey, Reggie McKenzie, Ted Thompson, Elliot Wolf. And I didn't want to or get involved in any of the scouting side, and they didn't want to or get involved in the financial side. We stayed in our lanes. I think when you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, it does create for potential problems. And the one thing I remarked to these questions about what goes on in Philadelphia, you have a scouting staff out there for 7 months, bird dogging every player. In a normal non-pandemic year, they're traveling that whole time. And the worst thing you can do when you set up the board, everybody stands on their table for their prospects. Area scout says this guy should be a second rounder, and maybe he ends up on the second round of the board, maybe he ends up in the third round, but it's set. By this time, the board is set. The worst thing that can happen to a staff is for a decision maker or an owner to walk in and say, we're going to go here, jump the board. It's the worst, and not the worst for the future of the franchise. Maybe the player turns out to be all pro, but that scouting staff, you can almost feel the air go out of the room if that happens. Did it happen with us? Maybe, maybe we bumped up a guy now and then, but obviously our biggest example was Rodgers, true to the board. And that makes everyone happy because then you have, like you said, that altruistic.
And we'll see if that's the case with the Eagles. Howie sung a pretty good song the other day about the collaborative effort and the board stays intact. We'll find out if that's the case come next Thursday night. Andrew, we appreciate you carving out a couple of minutes for us. Thanks much, bud. We will tap into you from time to time here on Birds 365. Thanks for hopping aboard today.
Yeah, happy to do it. And people ask about the newsletter, which is doing well. It's andrew-brandt.com. You can sign up.
And his podcast is the absolute best, The Business of Sports. Get it where you can get your better podcast. Frequent listener right here, you should be as well. Andrew, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Andrew Brandt here with us on Birds 365. He's Johnny Mac. I'm Jody Mac, the Mac and Mac guy. Still got, 15 minutes or so to go here on this edition of Birds 365. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.